Welcome to another chilling episode of Murder Mystery, where we delve into some of the most unsettling and perplexing cases in criminal history. Today, we turn our focus to Stephen Port, a man whose heinous crimes sent shockwaves through the LGBTQ+ community and beyond. Known infamously as the Grindr Killer, Port used the popular dating app to lure his victims, leading to a string of tragic deaths in London. Stephen Port met his victims through various gay and bisexual social networks and dating or hookup apps. He created elaborate biographies filled with lies, claiming he was an Oxford University graduate, a Royal Navy veteran, or even a special needs teacher. These false personas helped him gain the trust of his victims, making them more susceptible to his malicious intentions. Port's primary weapon was gamma-hydroxybutyric acid, GHB, a powerful date rape drug. He would add GHB to his victims' drinks, rendering them defenseless. He raped and ultimately murdered 4 men in his flat in Barking, East London. Post-mortem examinations revealed that each of the 4 men had died from a drug overdose featuring high levels of GHB. The graveyard of St. Margaret's Church in Barking became a focal point in this case, as the bodies of 3 of the 4 murder victims were discovered there. Port's first known victim was 23-year-old Anthony Walgate, a fashion student who occasionally worked as an escort. On June 17, 2014, Port contacted Walgate under the guise of being a client. At Port's flat, Walgate was drugged with GHB and raped. He died after Port gave him a fatal overdose of the drug. The next day, Port placed Walgate's body outside his flat and made an anonymous call for an ambulance. Shortly before 8 a.m., Walgate was pronounced dead. Despite evidence linking Port to Walgate's death, it was initially missed. Port was later convicted of perverting the course of justice in March 2015 due to inconsistencies in his account of Walgate's death to the police. He was sentenced to 8 months in prison, but was released in June 2015 with an electronic tag. Between August 2014 and September 2015, Port claimed 3 more victims: Gabriel Kovari, 22, a Slovakian national who had briefly lived with Port; Daniel Whitworth, 21, a chef from Gravesend in Kent; and Jack Taylor, 25, a forklift truck driver from Dagenham. The bodies of Kovari and Whitworth were discovered in the graveyard of St. Margaret's Church in Barking by the same woman walking her dog on separate occasions. Taylor's body was found in the park adjacent to the graveyard. Port attempted to cover his tracks by planting a fake suicide note alongside Whitworth's body, suggesting that Whitworth had killed Kovari and then taken his own life out of guilt. Port used a multitude of internet hookup sites and apps to contact his victims, including Sleepy Boy, Grindr, Hornet, FitLads, Badoo, Gaydar, Flirt, Daddy Hunt, Planet Romeo, Manhunt, Slave Boys, and Couchsurfing. The bodies of the 4 men were found in the vicinity of Stephen Port's flat over a period of just over a year, starting in June 2014. Anthony Walgate, the first victim, was found outside Port's front door, while the other 3, Gabriel Kovari, Daniel Whitworth, and Jack Taylor, were found in or near a nearby graveyard. Despite the proximity of the bodies and the similarities in the deaths, the Metropolitan Police failed to link the cases. Initially, the first 3 victims were not thought to have died under suspicious circumstances. Even though both the Pink News website and the Force's LGBT Independent Advisory Group suspected a serial murderer was at large, the police insisted the crimes were not connected. In March 2017, a BBC One documentary highlighted a catalog of police failings in the Met's response to the deaths. Crucial witnesses were not questioned, including Port's neighbor, who had seen Port in a dazed state with a large container of white powder and bottles of clear liquid. This neighbor also reported receiving suspicious text messages from Port regarding Kovari. John Pape, Kovari's previous landlord, conducted his own research online and discovered similarities between the cases of Kovari and Anthony Walgate, particularly regarding the locations where the bodies were found. Despite Pape's findings, the Barking and Dagenham police did not link the 2 cases. When Pape learned of Whitworth's death, he contacted the police, expressing concern for his own safety and suggesting that the cases might be connected. He was assured they were not linked and not being investigated as suspicious. Despite offering to be interviewed about Kovari's last movements, Pape received no response from the police, even after having organizations such as Pink News contact the police on his behalf. The woman who discovered both Kovary's and Whitworth's bodies also criticized the police, noting that the bodies were found in nearly identical positions in the same location. She believed the police had no idea what they were doing by failing to connect the cases. Whitworth's stepmother recounted that when police informed her of his death, they led her to believe it was due to a drug overdose, despite no investigation having taken place. They ignored the bruising under his arms, which a coroner later stated could indicate third-party involvement. The police accepted a supposed suicide note found with Whitworth's body without expert analysis, despite his family expressing doubts about its authenticity. Taylor's sister described the police's handling of her brother's case as shocking. The police initially accepted evidence suggesting Taylor had overdosed on drugs, despite his known aversion to drugs. Taylor's family discovered connections to the other cases themselves and questioned the police, who denied any links. Only 2 weeks after Taylor's death did the police inform his sisters of CCTV footage showing Taylor with another man. The police initially resisted releasing the images to the public, but eventually they complied. This led to Port being identified and arrested. Following Port's conviction, the Independent Police Complaints Commission, IPCC, opened an investigation into whether 17 police officers should face disciplinary action. This investigation was expected to conclude in spring 2018, but would not be made public until after a new joint inquest on all 4 deaths, with the inquests on Kovary and Whitworth later quashed. The victims' families filed a civil claim against the Metropolitan Police, which was settled for undisclosed amounts in 2022. In 2016, the Metropolitan Police announced they were re-examining 58 unexplained deaths involving date rape drugs, although there was no evidence linking Port to any of these cases. Additionally, Port had been identified as a significant witness in a rape allegation hours after his first victim was found dead. In June 2022, the Independent Office of Police Conduct reopened investigations into the handling of the deaths due to alleged material flaws in its previous investigation. In the aftermath, the families of Port's victims received compensation from the Metropolitan Police due to their mishandling of the investigation. The Independent Office for Police Conduct, IOPC, reinvestigated the Met over its initial handling of these tragic cases. Stephen Port's crimes were a devastating reminder of the dangers that can lurk behind the anonymity of online profiles. His calculated use of deceit and drugs to exploit and murder young men shook the LGBTQ+ community and highlighted significant failures in the investigative process. As we remember the victims, we must also strive for justice and vigilance in preventing such atrocities in the future. In 2015, Stephen Port faced formal charges for his horrific crimes. He was initially charged with 4 counts of murder and 4 counts of administering poison. However, as the investigation progressed, the full extent of his actions became evident. By June 2016, at the Old Bailey, prosecutors had added 6 more counts of administering poison, 7 charges of rape, and 4 charges of sexual assault. Port also faced 4 alternative charges of manslaughter. Appearing via video link from HM Prison Belmarsh, Port denied all charges. The trial was a detailed and harrowing affair. On November 23, 2016, the jury found Stephen Port guilty of the murders, assaults by penetration, and rapes of Anthony Walgate, Gabriel Kovary, Daniel Whitworth, and Jack Taylor. In addition, he was convicted of the rapes of 3 other men he had drugged, 10 counts of administering a substance with intent, and 4 counts of sexual assault. In total, 11 men were known victims of Port's crimes. Malcolm McAfee, Deputy Chief Crown Prosecutor for CPS London, provided a chilling summary of the case. Over a period of 3 years, the defendant committed a series of murders and serious sexual offenses against young men. Port manipulated and controlled these men through the chilling and calculated use of the drug GHB, which he administered without their permission. This was a technically challenging case, complicated by a significant amount of evidence taken from the numerous social media sites Port used. 2 days later, on November 25, 2016, Mr. Justice Openshaw sentenced Stephen Port to life imprisonment with a whole life order, ensuring that Port would never be released from prison. He remains incarcerated in HM Prison Belmarsh in Thamesmead, South London. In August 2018, Stephen Port lodged an appeal against his murder convictions, hoping to overturn the decisions made against him. However, in November 2018, it was announced that Port's appeal had been rejected, affirming his life sentences and the justice served for his victims. In a surprising twist, Port's crimes surfaced in an unexpected venue in August 2020. During a Brazilian chat show, Que Historia é essa, Porchat? Hosted by Fabio Porchat, an audience member named Rafael recounted his unsettling experience of dating Stephen Port. Rafael had moved to London in 2012 at 19 years old and was working as a waiter when he met Port on a dating website. After they started dating, Rafael moved into Port's apartment, where they lived together for just over a month. Following their breakup, Rafael returned to Brazil and began a new life. One day, curiosity led Rafael to search for Port's name online, where he stumbled upon an article on the BBC about the murders. Initially, he thought Port had created a documentary about a serial killer, but as he read further, he was horrified to realize Port was the serial killer. Reflecting on their time together, Rafael noted that in hindsight, there were a lot of strange things going on. Another former partner of Port's also came forward, citing Port's unusual behavior as the reason for their breakup. In July 2020, a fresh inquiry was announced to re-examine all 4 deaths and investigate any potential police failings. This new inquiry was set to begin in January 2021, aiming to provide a thorough review of the case and ensure accountability for any oversight by the authorities. In 2019, Gerald Matovu, a known associate of Stephen Port, came into the spotlight. Matovu had supplied Port with the GHB used in his killings. Following Port's conviction, Matovu continued his criminal activities, culminating in the murder of actor and businessman Eric Michaels. Matovu targeted Michaels on Grindr, using similar methods to those employed by Port. He administered a fatal dose of GHB to Michaels, leading to his death. Matovu was subsequently arrested, convicted of murder, and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 31 years.